Hello and welcome to the Museum of English Literature. Today, we will be looking at the important figures and statements that make English literature so interesting and how it has changed our way of speaking the English language. The exhibits we will be visiting first are the exhibits of characters. This first exhibit is of George Orwell, from Shooting an Elephant, and Peter Williamson, from Beware a Dog, as they express how intense a situation can be if you let it escalate. Orwell in Shooting an Elephant was pressed by the crowd to kill the animal, and in Beware a Dog, Peter Williamson was behind enemy lines, all by himself with no help and an amputated leg. This gives us, the reader, a feeling of anticipation and worry for these characters on how they will get out of this situation. This next exhibit is of Karatakis Potts and Truly Scrumptious from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. The reason these characters are in the same exhibit is because of how opposite these characters feel towards their dream. Karatakis has many silly inventions and wants to follow his own path of being an inventor. For Truly, she is following the steps of her father and is being completely real about becoming the head of her father's candy company. This gives the reader an understanding of an idealistic perspective and realistic perspective from both sides of the characters. The last exhibit is of the characters Victor Frankenstein from Frankenstein's Monster and the Boy from Araby. The characters in this section are very much similar as they share the feeling of obsession. Victor within his story is very obsessed with his work and wouldn't even rest for a second to save his own life. For the Boy from Araby, he is very obsessed with his friend's sister and wants her to like him and notice him as a man. This is to give insight to let people know that being obsessive can have major consequences to your personal life or the people around you. The next exhibit is the exhibit of sounds and imagery. The exhibit for this is of the quotes from certain poems that give very descriptive detail to the reader. Take these quotes from A Red, Red Rose and The Horses. They give very imaginative descriptions of color within the surroundings of the poems, like brightening gray and love is like a red, red rose. These quotes tell us that color gives definition to how we look at the things in life. These next pair of quotes from Beware a Dog and Achilles help describe the sounds we can't hear when reading a poem. Achilles describes sound by comparing it to spices and how sweet it can be, while Beware a Dog gives us an image within our minds through the sounds of plane engines, the silence of sirens and horns, and how distant the sounds are from him. These last quotes are simple but give a lot of information about how lovely a still image of a plot of land is. From I wandered lonely as a cloud, he tells us that the trees are dancing in the wind and how vibrant the pack of daffodils are. Lines composed a few miles above tell us that the hedgehogs use nature to their advantage and how they do it. These quotes can give people a different outlook on how they view the life they live now. This exhibit is the Poetic Devices exhibit. Simile is the meaning of comparing one thing to another thing with no relation. It is to give that one object more meaning and a better understanding of said object. While onomatopoeia shows the object or creature the sound it is making, like if a dog started barking, then the word to explain what the dog is saying is bark. Onomatopoeia is to help us have a visual description of what we can't see normally, and simile is to give objects meaning to another object. For the device hyperbole, it's to have a much more exaggerated choice of words or phrases to emphasize the meaning of what a person is saying. For example, if someone said, "I can stop a train," doesn't mean they can literally stop a train. It's to give the idea that the person is strong. Personification helps a non-human object or being have characteristics of a human, say like the wind is dancing in the sky. Meaning the wind flows like a person dancing. The final exhibit is the author's exhibit. The authors I chose for this first section are Lewis Carroll of Jabberwocky and Mary W. Shelley of Frankenstein. These authors are very interesting as they made stories of a monster that terrorized a family. Shelley's was unique as it gave the monster great intelligence, and Carroll's story had a monster from mythical fantasy. One about somewhat real situations and the other is from a much more fictional background. This goes back to the authors having an idealistic and realistic perspective, but in a much more grander setting. The final author of the exhibit would be James Joyce of Araby and William Wordsworth of The World Is Too Much With Us. Joyce made a beautiful narrative of what a little boy wants in life and what his ideals were to make his dreams come true. Wordsworth in The World Is Too Much With Us gives more of a sad representation to how we live, saying that we only live life to a certain extent, not to its fullest. Joyce shows us what we want while Wordsworth gives us the truth. This is the end of the museum. Thank you so much for visiting, and we hope to see you again soon.